Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On this concurrent vote, the changes from when we had sent it over, no new games will be permitted. Weekly limits is set at $25,000. Fire and EMS emergency services can also hold raffles with a $50,000 limit. Clubs with liquor licenses will submit a semi-annual report to Revenue versus PSP. It requires Revenue to post these reports on their websites and give a copy to Pennsylvania State Police. LCE will conduct random audits in 5% of the club licensees a year. Violation of Small Games Act does not constitute a strike against the liquor license as current law states. Under this version, a club must have 3 violations of the Small Games Act before LCE can enforce a penalty against the liquor license. Civil penalties are now imposed. The intentional or willful failure of a club to provide accurate reports will result in a 6-month license suspension, and criminal fines remain the same as current law. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Question is, will the House concur in the amendments inserted by the Senate? On that question, the Speaker recognizes the gentleman from Bucks County, Mr. Clymer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I've debated this bill several months ago, so I'm not going to go through all the reasons why a person should not support this legislation. But I do want to make one comment. My comment is simply that it does lead to addiction. No matter how you cut the cake, and how many ways you twist it, with this increased gambling that we are going to see if this bill should pass and be signed into law, it does increase addiction. It will hurt families and children, mothers and wives, older people who will spend their money because of the huge increase in limits. So with those thoughts and reflections, Mr. Speaker, I will be a no vote. Thank you.
Question is, will the House concur in the amendments inserted by the Senate? On that question, the Speaker recognizes the gentleman from Chester County, Mr. Schroeder.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Small Games of Chance law is a bill that has an impact in literally all of our communities across this state, and I believe the impact has been overwhelmingly positive. Small Games of Chance law allows our nonprofit organizations, whether they be VFWs, fire companies, or PTAs, to raise valuable, needed funds for their volunteer nonprofit organizations to go to charitable purposes and to keep these organizations afloat. Mr. Speaker, this is the first revision, the first update, the first improvement of this law since it was enacted back in the mid-1980s. Since that time, as we all know, the figures, the winning figures, the payout figures have not been updated and have not kept up with inflation, and then we're changing that today. Also, additional enforcement has been placed in this legislation, which will allow law enforcement to deal more effectively with violators. Mr. Speaker, I want to commend the gentlelady from Cumberland County for her diligent and active work in getting us to this point where we're literally on the verge of sending this bill to the governor's desk. I want to thank the members of the Gaming Oversight Committee for their work. I want to thank my colleague, the Democratic chair, the gentlelady from Philadelphia. And I believe that when we vote this bill out of this chamber today on concurrence, we can all leave this chamber with a sense of pride and accomplishment for a job well done for aiding our communities, our charities, our volunteer organizations to continue their mission and their important work. So, Mr. Speaker, I ask for a yes on concurrence. Thank you very much.
Question is, will the House concur in the amendments inserted by the Senate? On that question, the Speaker recognizes the lady from Cumberland County, Ms. Delozier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the remarks made by the chairman and all of the work that was done, not only in the committee by committee staff, but certainly all of the interest groups that will have this impact them. This bill is not one that's unfamiliar to all of us in this chamber. We've seen many versions, we've seen many reiterations over the years. We're looking for this compromise, and I think this is a strong bipartisan compromise where we brought in as many people as we possibly could to the to the process. At this point in time, we're going to go into a budget season. This budget season is going to be a tough one. As we have all said, the money is short in state and federal government. This bill will allow for our nonprofits in our communities to fill some of the gaps that state and federal government and local government can no longer do. This is a support system that our communities need to support scholarships, to support our baseball teams and softball teams, to support our local parks and recreation areas. As we move through this, I want to say that there have been a lot of input, a lot of bipartisan compromise with all of our state agencies and with all of our agencies and interaction with the groups outside of state government. I want to thank them, and I ask for an affirmative vote on House Bill 169 to send this bill to the governor's desk to help our communities and help ourselves and make sure that our community still can help us. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The question is, will the House concur in the amendments inserted by the Senate? Those voting to concur will vote aye. Those voting to non-concur will vote no. Members will proceed to vote. Have all the members voted? Have all the members voted? Have all the members voted? Clerk will record the vote. The yeas are 178, the nays 10. The majority required by the Constitution, having voted in the affirmative, the amendments are concurred in, and the clerk will inform the Senate accordingly. The Majority Leader, Mr. Turzai, is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. On unanimous consent, please. I want to applaud the good lady from Cumberland County on her outstanding work with respect to House Bill 169. This is an important piece of legislation with respect to our fire companies, our clubs, and other local organizations. It increases limits on small games of chance, increases maximum prize for a single chance, increases maximum weekly prize limits, and raises prize limit for raffles. It creates stronger reporting requirements, however. It requires club licenses to submit reports and provides for stronger enforcement. It is an outstanding, balanced bill. By doing what we just did in passing this and sending it to the governor's desk, with work in the House and the Senate and the governor's office, we have enabled these organizations to provide the services that they provide in each and every one of our communities without raising a single tax. This is really a pro-community piece of legislation, an important pro-community piece of legislation that balances the needs of these community organizations with law enforcement. It could never have been done without the hard work of the gentlelady from Cumberland County and with the chair of the Gaming Oversight Committee. I applaud them both. Thank you very, very much.